she meets with the doctor, and he's just friendly with her. He's not like, hey, this is the 15th abortion today. I can't wait.
Abortion.
He's just a doctor. And you know what he does? He talks to her like a doctor would talk to her. He answers her questions, makes a little small talk, and, like, it's just fine. Like, it's not like, and the episode isn't saying, like, see, kids, go get yourself an abortion today. It's just saying, it's just saying this is what happened to someone who got an abortion.
Grab some popcorn and stick around. We've got some garbage to talk about.
Hi, Rogue.
Hey, Zax.
Hi, Karina.
Hey, Zach, say Rogue.
Hey, Karina.
Well, today this is a biggie. We're having our first official KoF educational moment.
Yay.
And I wish it was on happier terms, but as the title showed, we are tackling abortion. And just to get this out before we go any further, there's going to be like a lot of troubling topics, so like sexual assault, forced medical procedures, birth trauma, things that we're going to discuss, and we're not really going to like do the whole essay things like that, just because we want to be very clear in this video as much as we can. Also, we want it to be, it's important that even though, you know, for this discussion, we're just coming at this as cis women, it's really important that in discussions of abortion and reproductive rights in general, they should always include trans and gender non-conforming folks.
Okay. No TERFs welcome.
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
Yeah, no shirt, no shoes, no TERFs.
Yeah.
That's it. Although, honestly, though, like, it was so funny. I was at a restaurant, I guess, before we get heavy, and I saw a guy just, like, not wear a shirt to go into the restaurant, and I was like, oh, yeah, I guess, that is on
May?
the table.
Isn't it too early to... It's still kind of... Well, I'm in Canada, so it's always, like, still kind of cold.
Yeah, you know, we had, like, thunderstorms last week, and now it's, like, in the 90s this week, so, you know, Oklahoma doesn't care at all. Okay, so, the reason that we decided to do this video in general is because, you know, there was the Supreme Court leak that there's discussion about overturning Roe v. Wade. And so, real quick, let's just talk about, you know, what Roe v. Wade is. Do either of you want to do that?
Go ahead, Karina.
Okay,
Yeah.
so so we hear Roe v. Wade, and it's kind of a buzzword because, like, we know what it's about. It's like protecting abortion rights in America, but I don't think a lot of people know the history of it. So here's a quick rundown of it. So back in 1968, there was a woman named Norma McCorvey, who is otherwise known as Jane Roe. She was a mother of 2 children who found herself pregnant, and she wanted to terminate her current pregnancy, but she was living in Texas, and at the time Texas had very strict abortion laws, and essentially made it illegal. And just kind of some notes on McCorvey herself. So prior to this high-profile case, McCorvey notably had a very difficult youth and was raised Jehovah's Witness for a period of time. She had a pretty short run with law enforcement for just like kind of petty crimes, and was married at 16 to an abusive older man. And then eventually later in life, she came out as gay and started identifying as a lesbian. So what ended up happening was these 2 lawyers got into contact with McCorvey because they wanted to challenge Texas's abortion laws. And so this trial went on. McCorvey eventually gave birth to her 3rd child, who she put up for adoption. But the outcome of this case, it got a lot of attention. So what ended up happening was the right to women's choice, it was established to be protected under the 14th Amendment, which is right to privacy. However, right to privacy is not an absolute, and there needs to be a balance between protecting a woman's health and prenatal life. And so what happened was this balance was established by the trimesters of pregnancy. So for the first trimester, this is up to 12 weeks. The government cannot prohibit abortion at all. It needs to be accessible to everybody who is seeking this procedure at that time. The second trimester, which is 13 to 27 weeks, the government could require some reasonable medical health regulations. So basically that means if the pregnancy is having a negative impact on the mother's health and life, then she can go forth and acquire an abortion. And then there is the third trimester, so that is 28 to 40 weeks. Abortions could be prohibited entirely with exemptions to save a woman's life. So after all of this happened, McCorvey infamously went on to very publicly change her stance on abortion. Previously, she was very pro-choice, which, was kind of the whole point of her trial and media presence. But she went on to change her stance on abortion rights and was very heavily involved with the religious right and the pro-life movement. And just a little point on this, prior to everything, prior to this happening, she was living with her partner, whose name was Connie Gonzalez. And McCorvey went on to say that after she converted to Christianity, she was no longer a lesbian and had a platonic friendship with Gonzalez, which, poor Connie. And then shortly
good
before...
on Connie for sticking it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then shortly before her death in 2017, McCorvey was interviewed for a documentary titled AKA Jane Roe, where she gave what she referred to as her deathbed confession, detailing how she was paid off and essentially exploited by evangelical groups to promote their anti-abortion agenda, which is so predatory and so such a quintessential religious right evangelical move. Let's take this person who is kind of a poster child for this movement, exploit them. This person is already deeply traumatized by all of their life situations, and let's use them and manipulate them into pushing our agenda. We love that.
Yeah, I think that's something really that I do want everyone, listening to really pay attention to, because I can definitely see people making the argument the real Roe didn't even stick with feeling that way. She changed her mind, but before she died, she wanted to set the record straight and say, no, actually, I was paid off.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just, unfortunate. But I think it's, I think you should just... This case is, important, but I think it's gone, past, her reputation. Because, honestly, the situation is bigger than her. So I think it is just also kind of important to keep in mind that, when you hear... You shouldn't base something on, because someone did something that you agreed with change their mind.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to. Especially because you don't know what led anyone to believe whatever they come to believe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, now let's talk about, what overturning Roe v. Wade does. Basically, it's going to create kind of a domino effect where they want just states can control abortion laws. And we've already seen, Oklahoma just did something that made abortion even harder. Texas has, it's been going on for a while where states are making it harder and harder to
a lot of red
obtain
states.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. That's where the trouble is. But, that is... And that's all that's going to happen with this. It's just that it's going to be easier. But I just wanted to point out at this point, I really like following Robert Reich because he is For those of you who don't know, he was the Secretary of Labor during Bill Clinton's presidency, and like, you know, whatever about like Clinton, but like Robert Reich is just like really sweet. I think he like does interviews with like the Starbucks employees that are unionizing, and he's just like really propping them up in that way, and just like he's, I don't know, even if I like, from all I know about him, which is just like what he's said, he just really seems to be upfront and honest. And he was talking, and I didn't really think about this before, but he had some videos, and we'll like link this stuff in the description, but he was talking about how being like pro-life is not pro-life. It's pro-poverty, pro-inequality. Because if you think about it this way, wealthy people are going to be able to continue getting abortions. They're going to be able... Most high-paying jobs offer pretty good PTO. If you're working for minimum wage, not only is it if you get PTO, you can't afford to take unpaid time off. Like, he used the example of Texas. Like, some people in Texas need to travel up to like 247 miles to get to the abortion. And then like any recovery time that's potentially on the table, like that's just not it. He also pointed out that, like, you know, and I think this is something important to keep in mind, like when we're talking about reproductive rights in general, most of the laws that are a hindrance to this are being made by Republican lawmen who are mostly cis white men. So, and like, it's especially when you think about just having a child is just such a not cost effective. It's just such a costly thing. It's really cost effective.
Because kids are so cheap nowadays.
You know, it's real. Being frugal having kids will just start a little family factory.
How to raise a kid on a budget.
But no, it's not. That was the worst thing I could have said, actually. Because my point is that the more kids you have, especially when you're not in a position to have them or take care of them, it is just going to make sure that you stay poor. And it's literally just another way for the fiscal conservatives to keep you under thumb. Like, that's all it does. They don't even really care about the embryo in question at all.
They just want to control your body and keep you poor.
Yeah. And I think that's also what is, because even like people who, like, I understand like why they feel as strongly as they do. The people who are helping pro-lifers along do not care.
Right.
About that at all. They're not even on your side. If reproductive rights hindered people coming up in the world, they would be for that. So it's all about money. Which I think, you know, it just is.
I think just like a comment on that, the aspect of like being pro-life or being anti-abortion or whatever it is people want to call themselves. Not to like make a blanket statement, but like considering who we're talking about, I don't care. The vast majority of these people who are claiming to be pro-life do not care about what happens to that child after it's born. They don't want to put money into raising it. They don't want to put money into social services that will take care of this kid. They don't care. They are pro-birth. They are pro-state forced pregnancy. And they just want to control women's bodies. They're like, you know what? No. I have my own understanding of when life starts, or like my moral compass or whatever it is. So I'm going to push those views onto you and use my judgment on you, and will offer you no help.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point to bring up. Like, it actually, in part of my research for this video, I watched George Carlin's bit on pro-life. I did other things too. Imagine if that was all. Like, we just did George Carlin's Type 5 on abortion.
And that was all our research. It's just we watch the video and give live commentary.
We're like, man, you look
You're
at this
right.
man really tell us, okay, goodbye, everybody.
Thanks for watching.
KoF React channel.
Yeah, oh god.
But, okay. But he did bring up basically the same points and, like, how, you know, for being, like, it's all about just, like, once, they only care about you before you're born, and then once you're born, it's out. Like, where is daycare? Like, or if you're 18 plus, where's your access to education in the United States? I think it's interesting too, just like, I mean, especially because, like, George Carlin's been dead for how long, and this is still an issue? That's a whole other thing. But I think it's, like, on one hand, like, I guess I just really fundamentally do not really understand what we're fighting for. And, like, I'll just put this addendum here in case, like, well, it should just get cut out. But, like, strictly, like, philosophically speaking, this is just something I was thinking about today. Okay, so you know how people say, like, if a child, like, dies of cancer, they say, like, oh, well, God needed another angel.
Which is a horrible thing to say to grieving parents.
True.
Yeah, don't say that.
But people do. But that being said, but just, like, meeting
we don't like
people
those
where
people.
But just meeting, for the sake of meeting people where they are, doesn't that just mean that, like, because if life starts at conception, doesn't that fetus already have a soul? Can't God just, if he just takes the aborted ones that he doesn't need to
answer. That's such a complicated answer. Because, like, from a Catholic standpoint, babies who pass away have to remain in purgatory for a really long time. So
unless
it's like, well, we don't want them to go to purgatory. Yeah, unless they're baptized, exactly. So it's like, well, we don't want them to go to purgatory, so we at least need to get them baptized first.
Right. Okay, so, like we said, the bottom line with overturning Roe is essentially that, you know, it's just another way for the people on top to keep the people on the bottom under thumb, and an easiest way to keep people poor is to have them keep having kids, basically, is what it comes down to. But now let's just talk about, like, reproductive rights in general. And, like, I think there's some things that people don't really factor into, like, why reproductive rights are important. One thing is that slavery was able to be perpetuated by the rape and pregnancies of black women. They would just, then you would get more slaves that way. So then that's just such a hard thing to think about, honestly. But, so, like, without, and, like, granted, like, you know, they didn't have a choice in the matter at all, but, like, that's part of, let me figure out how to phrase what I'm trying to say. But, like, that's a very extreme example, but the fact that, like, pregnancy is literally a way that women were used as cattle. And, like, it's still today, like, these arguments, like, the reason why pro-life is anti-woman is because it's just another, just from this standpoint, like, even if you are pro-life, there should be no reason to intervene with someone who is pro-choice, or someone who is unsure but they know that they need to have an abortion for themselves.
Right.
Your intervention is getting in the way of their life.
Yeah.
Their choice. And like, I think I don't understand how, like, if, you know, like, outside people who like go and like picket Planned Parenthoods, one, I don't think they fully understand that, like, that's not all they do there.
Yeah.
No, it is.
For one.
I mean, they do
All they do.
understand. I mean, they do understand. That's what I meant. That's not all they do there, but they're also against those things, and they also assume that they're encouraging abortion as the number one option. So,
And like,
Also,
on one
for,
hand,
for
like,
folks who don't know, because like maybe you don't know, Planned Parenthood is kind of a one-stop shop for all things like reproductive and like sexual health wise. So you can go there for contraceptives, you can go there for STI and STD checks, you can go there for, you know, like getting an abortion, but there's also like family planning and like other things that these people would be like, oh, that's not that bad. You know, it's not just like, it's not an abortion factory in there.
but
Right.
people also
Like-
believe that like they claim that they're a resource for family planning, but really it's just to push abortions.
Yeah.
I guess on one hand, but like,
They
I
gotta
guess here's
fill
what
their
I,
abortion quota for the day.
They just
If
really
someone
hate
watching-
babies.
Yeah. Fuck them
But,
kids,
you
am I
know-
right, girls?
like, to that end, you know, if someone who comes across this video and like made it this far, thank you, I guess. But
guess.
Says we're
you
10
know-
minutes into the video.
well, like, I'm just saying, like, I hope we haven't offended you, but just like a genuine, like, just to put this out there, if someone is going to Planned Parenthood for literally any of the reasons, but if, you know, let's go on this is a woman, you see a pregnant woman walking in, and it looks like she's definitely not interested in keeping this child, which somehow you're okay with, I guess.
Because you can
but
read minds.
why would it be helpful for a bunch of people holding signs to be yelling at this woman?
I mean, haven't you
But,
seen
like-
Juno?
All babies want to get born.
You know, but like, see, that's the thing, but like, you just bullied her into looking for other options on Juno, and like, she still didn't keep the baby. But the baby, I guess, was born, but
Yeah.
only because but it wasn't like, but all it did was further her stress.
Yeah.
Really, is all that did. It just made her life worse. The other thing, might
Juno
I
could have been a
suggest
short film.
Yeah, it could have been a short film, but I liked what they tackled
Yeah.
in Juno. It
Juno's
was
great.
it
We should
was-
talk about Juno
but, okay.
at a different time.
We don't talk about Juno.
Yeah.
Oh.
No. We don't talk
But,
about
okay.
Juno.
But what I will here's an alternative I suggest. Why don't you guys, instead of that, put up like a little booth area and say, "I will adopt your child."
That's
because
a pretty
people
good
will
idea.
they'll say that, but
Like,
they don't mean
instead
it.
of yelling at this woman, no, but I'm saying mean it. If you're gonna interfere with this woman, if you really don't want an abortion, take care of the child, because obviously she can't.
Yeah, because like, you know, my TikTok
like,
is a
it's-
cesspool, so I'll get a bunch of like lefty stuff. That's just like what my For You page is, and I follow this account that is, oh god, what are they? They're like clinic support workers. That's probably not what they're called, but like, you know, they like escort people to and fro to like get an abortion, and a lot of times their job is interacting with these pro-lifers who just stand outside and like hold up pictures of miscarriages and bully people, and a lot of times they're like, what is your plan to help that 16-year-old in there who is getting an abortion? What is your backup plan for them? Are you going to adopt their baby? Are you going to pay for that baby's like medical care? Are you going to buy all the baby stuff? Are you going to pay for their schooling, their housing, blah, 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 all this stuff? And they're just like, well, it's murder. I'm like, Okay, so you're not here to be helpful. You're just here to harass people and push an agenda.
Also,
Their entire thing isn't to be helpful.
I don't think they realize too, like, people who are in dire straits, if they have a baby that they couldn't take care of, they're not even gonna try to, like, find the resources for more proper alleys, and could potentially just, like, leave the baby on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Which it's like, yeah, it got born, but
Now what?
yeah.
Yeah, like, I think that's
we
really...
saved the baby. Now I guess forget it. We did our job.
I think that's really what that part of the question really comes down to. Like, what does being born mean to these people? Because, like, I would expect that if I'm born, I would like to be taken care of. I think I would like to be on some kind of right track. Now, obviously, things happen, and, like, people are born in all sorts of circumstances. But, like, if someone didn't want the child, then it's, like, guaranteed that they're off to a bad spot.
Yeah.
What's the potential, too, that, like, you have a child that you didn't want for whatever reason, and then the child is born, and then they're in an abusive situation?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, yeah.
Or, like, poverty, or, literally anything else.
Yeah, like, I feel like this is, what I'm about to bring up is the kind of thing that some people will either find, like, lighthearted, or they will find just as horrifying as I did. But I was watching Semantics, and she put out this video about toddlers and tiaras, which, by the way, I've only seen, like, a handful of episodes through the course of my life. They really picked the best,
the juicy ones.
This woman literally said the only reason she had children was for them to be in pageants.
I know what mom you're talking about.
And when her first child was a son, she was very disappointed.
Oh my god.
So,
but then she was fine because there's boy pageants.
But, like, again, but that's not a person, like, that person carried them to term, but strictly for their own selfish reasons. And, that's, like, I don't know.
All children deserve parents, but not all parents deserve children.
Right.
Exactly. I think, but yeah, there's that. But now, keeping on this track of how, like, being how most pro-life ideology is anti-woman, Samantha Bees did a panel with, women that kind of represent the big three religions. And she basically just asked them each what their like religion's stance on abortion was. So she spoke with Rabbi Ruttenberg, and she's a scholar in residence for the National Council of Jewish Women. So that's a source. And she said that in Judaism, abortion is permitted, and in situations where the pregnant person's life is at stake, it is required, because the pregnant person's life is more important. Okay.
That makes that makes a lot of sense if you take into account the infant death rate across history.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it's like,
really.
well, so we're going to either cause this woman to die and maybe save the baby, and then maybe the baby's going to die in 6 months anyway.
Yeah.
I think that's something too that I don't think people, like, I think people sort of consider it, but not as explicitly, because, like, on one hand, like, okay, so when pregnancy is like a medical thing, like, whether you wanted to have a kid or not, it's a big deal. Like, your body's different for the rest of your life. Okay. That being said, like, on paper, the pregnant woman is a sure thing. Because they're already here, and they've been here for however long they've been here. So not even just, like... And I think it's weird, like... I think it's so weird that people talk about, like, like killing a baby who's not born yet, and like, even if the mother dies, that baby still needs to go on. I remember House had like several episodes where that was basically the moral.
That's crazy.
And it was so strange to me, because like, and it was weird because there was like, oh, there's egg on your face, House, because look, that baby lived, and you were saying that mother should have just prioritized herself. Very weird. Very strange. But anyway, but also, like, why don't we just care about the woman who's already here in all aspects? Like,
Yeah.
Emotionally, she doesn't want to have the baby. Why are we punishing her for 9 months when we could just, like, especially because, like, it really is a private thing that is nobody's business. Like,
Right.
there are so many pregnant people around here that I just do not know about. So, like, it's a kind of thing where, like, I feel like there's so many, where I feel like the difference between, like, and not in a haha I'm right kind of way, but it is weird whenever I think about, like, what my political views are versus, like, what, like, the conservative right stance on it is. It usually is, like, they can do what they want, leave them alone. That's it.
That's it.
That's the whole stance. But, like, so that's, that. So prioritizing, the pregnant person's life, because, again, that woman's already here. So, good. Rafa P. Kidvai is the director for the Repro Legal Defense Fund, and she brought up that in Islam, there is no ban on abortion at any point, for any reason, by any method. So, do with that information what you will. Then Jamie L. Manson is the president of the Catholics for Choice. And she first, because it was really cute, because, like, they went down, like, the first two, and then Samantha Bee looks at Jamie like, well, what's this gonna be, as cut and dry? And she was like, she made sure to preface it by saying that this is a teaching created by men who are basically celibate, and they don't really, like, have connections with women in the same way because, like, they don't have wives or daughters to, like, factor in. But that basically the Catholic Church teaches that in almost every circumstance, abortion is murder. And then Samantha Bee asked, okay, is it in the Bible? And then Jamie L. Manson replied that the Christian scriptures do not mention abortion anywhere.
Just a reminder that the only thing in the Bible that talks about abortion is how to perform one.
Also, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because the rhetoric, the Catholic/Christian, if you're gonna Protestant rhetoric is that life begins at conception. But way back when the Bible was written, I don't think they would have known what that was. Like, when that was, I should say, right? Because they didn't know. Like,
yeah.
They didn't have ultrasounds. They didn't have x-rays.
They didn't, like,
I think
know that conception cell mitosis started.
Yeah, like,
when the sperm hit the egg. Like, they...
Yeah, not to sound like it's a clump of cells, but, like, that is what it be like for the first couple of weeks. It's not anything. It's just, like, here's the oh god, forgets basic human oh my god, biology. Jesus Christ. I think I'm losing my mind.
Can't
like,
even
yeah, I'm not even saying words. But, like, we all know it's like the egg meets the sperm, and then eventually a baby shows up. But, like, for the first couple of weeks, there's kind of nothing going on. It's just like, look at these little cells floating around, coming together, doing their thing. Osmosis.
So, yeah, way back in the olden days when the Bible was written,
they didn't know what that was.
Yeah, they didn't know that that's when conception happened. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, like I think the other thing too, though, like as we're talking about this, another thing that I'm thinking of is like what, like I feel like on one hand, you know, like I believe that pro-choice means not automatically abortion. I think it means that it's a decision that everyone has to make for themselves, by themselves with whatever resources are available. Okay. That being said, message to people who are pro-life at any cost. Why don't we make it better? Like, I'm just thinking about purity culture. Like, if a woman gets pregnant in, like, less than pure circumstances, be it, like, teen pregnancy, just premarital, whatever, then, like, they'll shame this woman for it. Like Scarlet Letter type of stuff. And like that's why people like there are people who, it's not just like, oh well, you made the law so it's hard and inconvenient. There are people who have use horrific methods for their backdoor abortions. Yes. Like that's how desperate they are to not have this label. But if it was like, you're pregnant and we're automatically going to, like, everywhere you go, we're going to be great for you, regardless of, like, what happens when the baby comes out, but, like, you're a queen right now because you're pregnant and we value all life in this world. Like, I feel like it's weird that that's not on the table and the reason it's not on the table is because women can't have a say in their bodies. They need to be discussed what to do with them, and then they need to just feel bad about themselves for it. Like,
I just don't. I know why. The answer is patriarchy, but like I just can't wrap my brain around the fact that a bunch of men are in power and are then deciding what women should do with their bodies. And again, I know why the answer is patriarchy and misogyny, but like, how did we end up here?
It still blows me away that it's even a discussion in the year 2022.
Yeah. Like, okay, Zax, you posted, or maybe it was Rogue, one of you posted in our notes, just like kind of abortion rights around the world and how that is changing in contrast to the U.S. Would one of you like to explore that?
I think Zax put that in there, so you can...
Yeah, okay. So, basically, I'm just looking this up, and like I said, we'll put different links in, but like some things that happened, keep in mind that like in 2022... America is just reneging on the whole abortion
from the
thing,
70s.
Yeah, the like
how are we going backwards?
I don't like in literally every department. America is going backwards. Trans rights backwards. Sex ed backwards. Abortion rights backwards.
It's
global warming backwards.
Like if you talked to an older person, they would be under the impression. Or, sorry, not they. You would be under the impression that the 60s through 80s were, like, the chastest, most wholesome eras, and that now we're all devils and sinners and running around. All we talk about is sex. All they talked about in the 40s was sex. Like, that's been happening forever.
You could just hitchhike and do LSD in the 60s and nobody would bat an eye. But God forbid in the year 2022, you have to terminate a pregnancy.
You know, it is weird, though, that you bring, like, all this up because, like, like, in my history class, but we were talking about, like, the more modern America, and it is weird how, like, history today, like, it's really similar. So, like, you had, like, the 60s and 70s where counterculture was, like, on the rise, hippies, punk, all that good stuff, and then in the 80s, Reagan came in and, like, it went backwards.
Was Reagan.
Yeah, Reaganed all over America.
And now we have... Oh boy.
where people, like, you know, Obama was president, and, like, we, you know, people ignore, like, what his presidency really kind of meant for the world, but, like, he legalized gay marriage, and, like, that was
Ended
cool.
racism.
He
Now we
ended
have a black
racism by
president.
being
We had-
elected.
Yeah.
We had
Good job,
one-
Obama. No more racism in America.
There are children in other countries who are afraid of the sky, but, like, that doesn't.
Yeah.
whole other
That's
thing.
okay. That's fine.
But we'll just America's woke.
Yeah,
And
we
then
love
Trump
it.
happened, and now we're here. So
With
like,
good old Joe.
yeah. So like, okay. So with all that in mind, while Ireland legalized abortion in 2019,
Yay.
that's it. Argentina in 2020.
Yay.
Mexico's Supreme Court decriminalized abortion last year, so that's like
That's good.
which, I mean, that's a step. And then Colombia's highest court legalized abortion until 24 weeks of pregnancy. So like these are just like examples, and like, you know, we could go through like every country, but like just like
Also, I forget because I forget sometimes because Karina's only kind of my friend, but she's not American,
Yeah.
yeah.
despite us heavily engaging in American politics with her. So, do you want to talk about Canada's abortion laws?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So abortion in Canada is legal, but it is kind of tricky to obtain one depending on what province you're in. Like I saw this chart the other day where abortion is most accessible in Ontario and Quebec, but in every other province, it's very difficult to find a clinic that will provide this procedure. And I think because now a lot of Americans are looking to Canada as this like kind of beacon of hope for reproductive rights, but a lot of conservatives in Parliament are for restricting abortion rights. And that's really shocking because we're like, oh, it's Canada. Like, it's super liberal up there. No. No, it's not. And it's a little troubling because this can very much happen up here, too. So it's important to make sure that you are voting in representatives that want to protect your bodily autonomy and don't want to strip you of your reproductive rights.
So, and how does that work, if you don't mind sharing, if you know, with, like, healthcare in Canada? Because, like, we have private healthcare here. So, I feel like that would be different, too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so abortion in Canada is legal in all stages of pregnancy, regardless of the reason, and is publicly funded as a medical procedure under the combined effects of the Federal Canada Health Act and provincial healthcare systems. However, access to services and resources vary by region. So it's free, it's covered under our universal healthcare, but again, it's a matter of accessibility in terms of where you are in the country.
Ooh.
So,
And oh yeah, continue.
so it's almost a dream. Like,
Almost. If we didn't
if you
have
had access
awful
to more.
conservative parties.
Yeah.
But while we're on the topic of Canada, I think this would be a good little detox from a lot of heavy
Oh
stuff.
god! Oh, not Degrassi.
Oh, no.
Oh god!
You-
I forgot
you
we
thought
had Degrassi in the notes.
But I think this is going to be a good detox because we're going to talk back to really heavy stuff in like the next couple sections.
Mm-hmm.
So, quick break. Degrassi is a show made by Canada.
I'm
and
sorry to the world that we created this show,
Don't be, because it gave me this.
and it gave
Most
us
of the
Drake.
time. That's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other
But
can of worms.
I don't like. I might be more upset about that than Degrassi. But you know, time will tell. But
We'll see if
okay,
Drake does something.
so-
Yikes again.
Okay, well, card in the corner. Aaron has come on the channel several times to go over different ways that Degrassi just totally mishandles
everything
pretty
it
much
talks about.
It's really, Degrassi is literally like, I think you said this, or maybe Bob, but I don't know. Basically, the gist with Degrassi is it's always like your super privileged friend just found out about some mild oppression today and thinks nobody else has ever heard of it.
Every episode of Degrassi is written by Maya. And that will only make sense if you have watched Degrassi next class or watched the videos that Kind of Friends has made.
But I will. This is semi. I think I was much more pleased with their take on Gail's non-binary journey. But this is like a middle ground. Basically, the character Lola, she's pink hair at first, but then she goes to blue hair because she gets sad.
The blue hair is much better.
They do not say that, but that is what I took it to be.
Yeah, that's her color story.
I love Cassie in season 2 of Euphoria. I love color journeys.
But, okay, this is so, okay, how do I explain?
So Lola gets pregnant
Basically,
by accident.
The reason, and this is something else that Degrassi just does, and like, I've just been watching the show for so long that I remember, that first time there was a pregnancy, at least since the Next Generation, Liberty got pregnant because her boyfriend JT put on a king-size condom and it fell off.
Oh my gosh.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I
Did it
really
fall off
want
before?
to know, like, 'cause the thing
During?
is,
We don't know. It just fell off.
yeah. Like, did he, like, not, like, did he get it on and, like, he, like, moved and then it fell? I really would, since I was, like, I might have been in, like, 5th or 6th grade. I think actually maybe younger when that episode came out. I was, like, watching Degrassi on Teenic with my parents, and I was, like, looking at them, and they were just, like, I don't know. They were usually pretty good about answering my questions about stuff like that, but they were like, I have no clue. I don't
They
know.
literally just had no idea.
Yeah, they were
I don't
just
know
like,
how that
my dad
Fox
was
will
like,
figure
wait,
this out
what?
one day.
We'll work it out. But anyway, then after that, if I remember correctly, Jenna gets pregnant. But she didn't know she was pregnant until way too late, and then they decided with that, which also, like, yikes, because she thought she was just gaining weight, and then before they go into the pregnancy plot, they have her with a, like, slight eating disorder plot.
Oh my
where
Degrassi literally...
she's like, she thinks she's putting on weight, and she's like, doesn't know why, so she starts taking diet pills.
No.
It's not for another, like, 2 episodes before she finds out she was pregnant. And then her boyfriend, KC, if you guys remember from the Zax is Over party, being the exceptional male specimen he is, he's like, well, can't you just get rid of it? It could kill me! Ugh, stupid girl. Getting pregnant on me.
I'm gonna go cheat on you with my sibling.
You're mixing it up, but that basically is what happened. Okay, now Lola. The contrived way that Lola gets pregnant is that she was taking her birth control. We will put up a picture of what birth control typically looks like.
Yeah.
So we can all be clear on this.
Or the version of this kind of birth control.
So it's a pack of pills, and typically they, as you can see on the picture, they are labeled. They like have 1, 2, 3, or they have, like, you know, days of the week. They have indicators, but no, for whatever reason, theirs didn't. And Lola was taking hers upside down. I believe starting with, like, the placebo
pills first, and then the dosage was not what it was supposed to be. I'm still baffled as to how she managed to goof up this bad.
Also, you would think that, like, I don't know, maybe you can use the excuse that's like, she's just a dumb teenager. I feel like you would try to pay attention to your birth control pills.
Yeah,
well,
both the pharmacist and the doctor will tell you how to take your birth control.
Read the instructions on the package.
Yeah, I know
no,
it's a big
that's the-
instruction panel, but you should read it.
No, that's the most interesting part, though, because when she's having the conversation with Frankie, because she has the audacity to correct Frankie on how she's taking her birth control. And that's how she finds out she was taking it wrong. Because she was like, oh no, you have to go light to dark, like a sunset. And then Frankie's like, no, you go this way. But the fact that she said light to dark like a sunset, that sounds like what she was told so that she would remember.
I guess so.
So, like,
I
it
assume
says
she
start
made it
on
up
the
herself.
package. It says start here. I don't know how she goofed so bad.
I don't know who played Lola, but they did her dirty.
Oh my god, this
Anyway,
poor girl was so excited to
finds
land a
out
TV
she's-
gig. And they did her dirty like this.
She gets pregnant, and she takes the test with her friends. They're so rude to her, just judging her. They're like, I bet it was someone embarrassing. Which is like, why are you saying these things?
They're
What's
in
wrong
the
with you
bathroom
two?
with her, whispering to each other in a bathroom. Imagine whispering in a bathroom. You would be able to hear it from the other side of the room.
Yeah, you're trying to pee, and then
Yeah.
you just hear like hee hee hee.
It's the girls' room of a high school, not like
So it's not that
their
big to
home.
begin with.
To be fair, that's
Yeah.
where all the gossip happened. So
Yeah, but you wouldn't
That's
gossip
fair.
about your friend while she was in
while
the
the friend is
stall.
in there. Well, you went into the bathroom with the friend that you're talking about. So to make a
Then,
long story short, these friends suck.
And they're going to continue to, basically
Mm-hmm.
for the whole episode. Do you feel they were redeemed by the end?
No.
No.
Okay. So she finds out she's pregnant, and then because of how judgy they've been, she just says like, well, they ask like, are we having a baby shower? Which, so rude. You know she does not want to be pregnant currently, even if she was gonna go through with it. Shut up, maybe. But then she's like, no, definitely not. But then she looks at her pregnancy test and just says, yes!
Yes.
With a big plus
Plus
sign.
So you know it's positive. Because the dumb babies who watch the show wouldn't get it.
I think
They'd be like, oh.
they make pregnancy tests like that at the very least. There's no way a high school would have bought one because they're expensive.
Yeah. The two lines were too much of an abstract concept for the viewers of Degrassi.
I like the idea, like, they use those ones, but because, like, you know, people watching don't know what it means, so then, like, her face, they're like, oh, wow, I guess she wanted a baby after all. Like, that's what they took away from her sad face. But anyway, so then she's trying to get an abortion. She goes to the father of the child, and she's just trying to talk to him, and he's like, hey, look, like,
play practice.
you know, we're, like, over.
We can't hang out anymore.
And then she's like, okay, but, like, I just need a ride. And he's like, look, maybe you could just take the bus or something. Which is like, so far the people
What an
who
ass.
That's also
so far the people that she should have been able to count on have let her down so hard. But then Yael, who, like, if you're watching the show, they're kind of friendly because, like, but not really. She basically joined Yael's YouTube channel, and there was like a little arc of some jealousy there because Yael was the girl, and now Lola's also a girl, so like, that was a problem. But then, like, it's fine. Anyway, they're working on this project, and she's like, okay, well, like, we're presenting tomorrow. Are you ready to go? And Lola, obviously, is not the furthest thing from her mind right now. So first, Yael is really mad at her. She's like, look, this is 50% of our grade. What are you doing? That's so bad. But then Lola just screams out, I'm getting an abortion. And then, like, first of all, there were so many students around. Like,
So one of the
we-
background
extra,
actors
definitely.
actually turns and looks at Lola as she says this.
he's like, golly, someone's having a worse day than me, I
Oh,
guess.
jeez.
But then, you know, but once Gail hears that, she's like, oh, okay, yeah, so actually, yes, because this is more important. Do you have a ride? Let's go together. And she just is supportive with her. And the whole time, she doesn't really even add her 2 cents in at all, because it really doesn't matter what Yael would do. This is what Lola's doing right now. And I think that is, like, a good thing for people to see. That, yeah, because, like, Lola even asks, like, what would you do if you were in my shoes? And Yael just says, I don't think that matters right now. Mm-hmm. Because, like, honestly, it really doesn't.
Yeah. This isn't about me. This is about you and what you would do. And like, what feels right for you. Yeah.
And I'm not you, because, like, maybe me and my parents want me to have a baby right now.
Yeah. But I'm too busy being a gamer.
But anyway, they go to the... But then, they go to the clinic together. Yael sits by her side, even holds her hand when she needs it. And it's very straightforward. You know, the woman walks her through, like, what's going to happen, the waiver to sign, and we talked about this. I think they get some of the facts wrong, but, like, I don't want to really, like, delve into that just, like, for clarity's sake. But, you know, then she meets with the doctor, and he's just friendly with her. He's not like, hey, this is the 15th abortion today. I can't wait. Abortion. He's just a doctor. And you know what he does? He talks to her like a doctor would talk to her. He answers her questions, makes a little small talk, and, like, it's just fine. Like, it's not like, and the episode isn't saying, like, see, kids, go get yourself an abortion today. It's just saying this is what happened to someone who got an abortion. Mm-hmm. So then, after that, she has to go present it to the school, the project she was working with Yael on, and they, she has to end up, like, screen share the project onto the projectors, but then everybody finds out that she had an abortion because it's literally, like, where to get abortion.
How should I get an abortion? Something. Abortion's near me.
How to get rid of
abortion
baby.
Doctors in your area.
And then everybody's like, oh my god, and she just, like, runs out. We don't get follow-up on how this project went.
I would like to think that Lola came back in and was like, haha, sorry everybody, it was just a funny goof. Anyways, so, medicine back in medieval times was, non-existent. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Leeches, goodbye.
Leeches, and then the witches that you would go to, and then capitalism happened.
The witches you'd go to, and hopefully they lived long enough to help you.
Yeah. You just go to Gertrude down the road, you go to her little hut, and you're like, I got a tummy ache, and she's like, here's some mint you could chew on. You go, thanks, Gertrude, and then you go home. That was medicine in medieval times.
Yeah. But then, then she talks to Yael, they decide, hey, why don't you just vlog about this? And then she does. And then I guess her reputation is restored.
And then her friends magically, like, stop judging her for getting an abortion.
Because then they're like, honestly, truth be told, I don't know what I'd do if I'd have an abortion. And they were like, yeah, me either.
Even though you killed your baby.
Let's go get smoothies.
Now that you have dead baby blood on your hands.
That'll be extra flavor.
Yeah, for the wings smoothies we're going to go get.
But then the father of the baby walks by and he's like, what are you guys cheering about? And then the one girl is like, yeah, she just owned the fact that she got an abortion. And, like, this guy makes a face like, oh.
Oh, man. I was the reason why.
Also,
and I was only, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I felt uncomfortable. I mean, I think one of the characters did kind of scold the one that said it, but, and she was like, what? She just posted a live video. Or she just posted a video.
I can basically tell everybody now.
Yeah, I felt really uncomfortable. I'm like, that's a pretty big deal, no matter which side you're on.
That's still not your business to share.
That's personal information.
Yeah.
I think it was weird, too, like, especially if I remember correctly, because I have not watched past this episode, because I didn't need to yet, but... So I don't remember how it goes, but I'm pretty sure he just makes that dumb face and we do not, like, we're not going to follow up on that. Like, I'm pretty sure at one point, like, his boyfriend, the reason he couldn't talk with Lola was because, like, his boyfriend was coming back out of a coma. golly, this show sucks.
This show
so
is such a
much.
disaster.
But his voice
Saying
comes
anything
the
out of
comb.
context is just a
Sounds
nightmare.
like you're, yeah,
Making it up.
like a fever dream.
Yeah.
It's like, and then he had a comb up, but she had,
And then
was
Maya tried
going
to kill herself.
Tried to walk in front of a bus.
And then had a girl boss moment.
Oh my god!
I think every episode of Degrassi is just like a Mad Libs page.
yeah,
Like the
they're
writers
like,
sit down and they're like, okay, character name Maya goes to the location bar and buzzword
commits
becomes a
2
feminist.
felonies.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, we did a video on that. So you
Card in the
guys,
corner.
If you don't
Always
know,
plug in.
then you know. Oh yeah. Okay. So back to the seriousness of this topic. So one thing that we'll have the link in the description, but there was like an interesting kind of like study survey thing that happened that just talked about like the gender gap and like public opinion on abortion. And basically what it comes down to is that men and women basically are equal when it comes to, for the most part. It's pretty much like the same amount of men and women think of themselves as pro-choice, or they think of themselves as, I'm not sure what I am, or I'm pro-life. I think it did show that, like, more women than men identify as pro-life, but I think what it really shows, at least to me, and I don't know if it you guys, but I think a lot of people are like, it's just, like, men and versus women, and, like, all women want abortions and men are gonna stop them. But I think it's more honestly just the religious right versus everyone else. I think that's just kind of I just wanted to do that. But now I want to talk about, I guess, is forced abortions. And there's this narrative that keeps getting pursued, like Planned Parenthood and stuff. They want you to get an abortion. If they find out you're pregnant, that's all they want. There was oh gosh, I wish I could remember which movie this was, but Big Joel reviewed this movie before, and it was wild. It was about abortion, but basically they're suggesting that, like, they profit off of abortions more than anything. Like, abortions are our bread and butter, toots. And, like, I can't even really explain it further than that. It's just so crazy to me. Like, because I guess, yes, like, with insurance and stuff, like, medical procedures are how they make money. But, like, no one's, like, forcing people, like, it's not like they're going to be like, hey, why don't we, like, give you, like, let's remove your appendix for no reason so we can charge you. Like, I don't even know what, like, it's just, I don't know. That makes no sense. Doctors aren't doing that. Unless they're, like, bad doctors. Okay. But the military did force pregnant women to get abortions until the 1970s. We'll link to,
like, pregnant women who were trying to enlist.
Like, if you were in the army, it's like, okay, either you're fired or you're gonna have to get forbidden abortion. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg actually was like a pretty big deal in why that stopped being the case. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, it was like, basically the policy was like, you can't serve in the army if you're pregnant. So if you wanted to stay, you would have to get an abortion. Under Trump, ICE performed abortions and hysterectomies on the immigrants they were keeping there. And that's...
Oh my gosh.
That's eugenics.
That's the UN's definition of genocide. And, like, it was so hard. I was talking to my dad about this when it happened, and he was like, no, that's propaganda. And I was like, No, it's not. They're like,
No.
you like listen to the, you know, reports and like interviews with these women sharing their stories, and like that was like, especially when you like, it's just such a hateful thing, but it's interesting. But just like for this, you know, they're
Forced sterilization.
yeah, forced sterile. They're not, because it's not even like they coerced them into getting it. They just did it to them.
Yeah.
So that's
And like to kind of put this in a Canadian context real quick, because like I know it's like, oh, Canada's this really nice, fun socialist utopia. Let's talk about eugenics and forced sterilization of Indigenous women during the times of residential schools, and like before and after that too. Indigenous women were sterilized. They had their reproductive organs removed under the guise of like, this is going to be just like a regular like checkup and medical procedure. And then they got hysterectomies against their will. And it's absolutely disgusting and revolting and is genocide. And Canada did that. And then acts like we didn't.
Well, it's like if you say the words chemical castration, people are like, oh, that's horrible. What? Like, you can't do that. You can't do that to a man. That's basically what forced hysterectomies are.
Mm-hmm.
Except, well, it's hard to say worse. But, you know, like, you're removing, they're removing part of your body.
And like, not to get like too political and wacky and wild, but like, what's the context of like needing to chemically castrate a man? The only time I can think of is when they are a sex pervert, and it's like, you're a sex pervert and you hurt people, so we need to chemically castrate you because you will continue to reoffend and hurt people.
final thing, like
Yeah.
on the topic. So like again, like forced, like we can. So we've given two instances where the U.S. government has forced pregnant people to get abortions or hysterectomies. In these cases, there's a study, and we're gonna link this as well. I don't really need to keep announcing it, but there was a study, survey they conducted, and it was just to basically narrow down the reasons that U.S. women have abortions. And the top reasons were that a child would interfere with education, work, they couldn't afford a baby, didn't want to be a single mother, or relationship problems, and you know, the like. Fewer than 1% said that their parents or partner's desire for them to have an abortion was the most important reason. So very interesting. They talk about like how they did it and narrowed it down. It's a peer reviewed study, but like it was a small sample size, so like, you know, just, you know, for transparency. But like
The thing with that though is like, I think because we had kind of a discussion about this leading up to us putting our notes together about the language of like, oh, should we call it pro-choice? Should we call it this? Should we call it that? I think for me at least, having that language of pro-choice is really important, because in that instance of the less than 1%, that person's choice was taken away. That their choice to like keep their child or to get an abortion, that was taken away because somebody else made the decision for them. And that's not okay either way. Nobody should be forced into getting an abortion, and nobody should be forced into staying pregnant.
Exactly. So now let's talk about why sex education is so important. And I was thinking we could start with just sort of going around and talking a little bit about like our experiences of our sex education in school and how that helped or could have been more helpful to us. Who would like to start?
Karina.
Okay. So we had, at the time of recording last night, we had a big talk about like our sex ed experience and how some of it was garbage and some of it was kind of okay. I kind of have a unique experience because I went to school in 2 different provinces. I did grades 1 to 4 in Alberta, and then 5 to my undergrad in Ontario. So when I was living in Alberta, and for context, Alberta's like a relatively conservative province. It's often referred to as the Texas of Canada. So because it's right on top of Montana. So whatever, that doesn't matter. That's not important in this context. But the school that I went to was very like liberal, and really valued like what I guess now would be like anti-oppressive practice, and like made sure that we were like very socially aware and like learned about like different cultures and like world issues at a really young grade, and I really appreciate that. And part of our curriculum was when we did sex ed in grade 4, we were all together. So like the boys and the girls were together. When usually, this is just kind of what I've gathered from everybody else, we get separated. So we all sat down, and our sex ed was like a week long. We would spend an hour and we talk about like, this is like some of the changes that you're going to see in your body. And it was very like straightforward. Like you're going to be a little stinky, and that's okay. That's just hormones. There's going to be hair in like different places. You might feel like a little more grumpy sometimes, you know, like going over puberty, and going over changes in like our bodies and our brains. And we talked a little bit about like how babies were produced. And then it was left on a note of like, and then the sperm gets to the egg. And then we were like, but how does that happen? And our teacher said, you should ask your parents. And then we gathered in the schoolyard and we're like, oh, sex is when you touch a boob. And we thought that was very funny. And then I moved back to Ontario, and just super different, just like boys in this room, girls in this room. We're just going to learn about what happens to your body and not the boys in the other room. And it was very strange. And then high school was a lot of like, if you have sex, you're going to get gonorrhea, and here's what it looks like. That's gross, right? Also, here's how to put on a condom, I guess. And very rarely, I can't even think of a time when consent was discussed at length. Like maybe we mentioned it like once or twice. We're like, guys, rape is pretty bad. You shouldn't do that. And then it was just kind of left on that note. And that's really unhelpful. That's really unhelpful for young people and just kind of people of all ages to not have this really important concept talked about at length in schools. Because, you know, I went on to like get assaulted as a young 20-year-old, which sucks. But you know, it is what it is not the correct thing to say.
That it
But,
really
like,
isn't.
no.
Please don't say that. I'll start crying.
But
yeah, it's, you know, and you know, like just having conversations like this about like bodily autonomy and like keeping yourself safe and what to do if you find yourself in a not ideal situation is really important for young people. And we need to do that way more than we are. And when we take this part of our education out of the curriculum entirely and we're just like, don't have sex, it's bad, all you're doing is you're creating like mysticism and like, ooh, like what is this? And then people get hurt. People find themselves in bad situations. Like young people can find themselves pregnant or like with STIs or just uncomfortable or hurt. And it's these same people who are like, oh, life begins at conception. Oh, I'm pro-life. It's these same people don't want sex ed in schools because they're like, oh, this, that, and the other. I'm like, you can't get rid of both of these things. One does not exist without the other. Anyways, protect sex ed.
yeah, no, definitely. Thank you for sharing. I always never know what.
No
I
problem.
liked listening, but I never know what to say.
where to go from
Yeah,
there.
it's like,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, we'll probably have like bigger videos on sex ed.
Yeah.
But here's a taste
Yeah.
from all of us.
Rogue, do you want to share any highlights from your sex
Yeah,
education?
so I had sex ed in every like new grade level, like elementary. I had elementary, middle school, high school, and then I took psychology of human sexuality in college, which was like essentially another giant sex ed class.
Yeah.
But yeah, fifth grade focused on puberty, and we were separated from the boys, but then shown both the boy and the girl videos. Like, we started with the girl one and then saw the boy one, and apparently that had not always been the case, which is wild to me. But the reason they changed the policy at the school was, our teacher told us this anyway, just straight to our faces. They said, we knew that you all were going to talk about it anyway, so we might as well just show you.
You might as well just put everyone together.
And then middle school was a lot. The standout part of sex ed in middle school that I remember was talking about methods of contraception. So, and I'm in a liberal enough state and school system. I went to public school, so it was fine. The schools in New Mexico are some of the worst in the country.
Ugh.
But I think the sex ed was, serviceable. It especially based on some other stories I've heard of sex ed. So yeah, we had lots of different options when we learned about contraception, aside from just like condoms and maybe be abstinent. I don't know. And then high school, I feel like, and then also like STDs, that was like touched on in middle school, more so in high school. There was a sex ed portion of like the health class. So more talk about STDs, which at that point had then shifted to STIs in terms of nomenclature. And also, like, the specific process of babies, like how the sperm and the egg become the baby,
Yeah.
all the way up until childbirth, and then that's when we got to watch our childbirth videos.
We never saw childbirth. Not that I wanted to, but I'm like, interesting.
Yeah, and then college level, obviously, it was a psychology course, but it also counted towards a women's studies credit, which is interesting because I'm like, why is psychology of human sexuality a women's studies credit? Like,
Yeah.
but
That's
whatever.
a weird roundabout
Yeah.
way of saying something.
But despite it being like a psychology credit, it was very heavy on biology, reproductive systems in men and women. And then also that course was amazing, honestly, because not only did we do all of the like basically like hammering home the sexual education, we also talked about things like the like sex workers, the porn industry. Mm-hmm. We had a speaker come and talk about her experience as a sex worker. She was a sex worker to put herself through med school, and as soon as she graduated med school, she stopped, which that's like really cool, and you know, that's why we need laws to protect sex workers. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think That's my experience with sex ed. It was, I think, on the better side of the scale for sexual education in America. Just evidenced by the fact that, one, we had it every few years, all the way through school. And then, two, that there wasn't a whole lot of, like, weird restrictions on what they could talk about. I do wish there was more focus on consent. That consent we didn't have, like, a deep dive into consent in any of my sex ed classes until, like, college. And by that point, it's really too late. I mean, obviously, it's never too late to teach someone. But it's
like,
too late to change the culture.
It's not, like, drilled in to your head by then that's not good.
So I do wish that, like, earlier on, consent had... Especially because then, by that point, too, consent on both... You're not educated in consent on both sides. Like, what happens if, like, you don't... You know, like, if you're not feeling comfortable and, like, being pressured, and that's what is considered consent for yourself. So, I wish they had talked about that more growing up. But it's not, and then also, like, resources were never provided, which I thought was interesting.
Resources like what?
But,
like, you know the scene in Mean Girls where it's like, don't have sex standing up, don't have sex here, and then he, like, hands out a bunch of condoms. Like, did that ever happen? Was anyone given condoms in high school?
Wait,
No.
I'm sorry. I'm still on the no resources. What do you mean?
resources for, like, contraception or, like, counseling surrounding sexual health issues, or, like, if you need to learn how to put on a condom, go to... Because, like, I don't know. I guess, like, I don't really see, actually, the issue with teaching kids how to put on condoms in classes. But if you won't do that, at least give resources on how they can learn to do it, you know?
Yeah, I think in my class, I don't think I ever practiced that. No one passed out condoms.
Oh, I thought you said nobody passed out.
Nobody passed.
Like, nobody fainted at the concept.
The standard of sex ed class is someone going, "Oh heavens!"
Oh goodness!
No, that
is that chlamydia on the PowerPoint?
But I will say, like, so I think similar track to Rogue, where my sex ed was more, I had it in 5th grade. That was just, like, the video where I learned that I was bamboozled for being a girl, and boys were just gonna get some wet dreams. Meanwhile, my body's screwed forever. That was what I learned in 5th grade. And that was basically it. It was so weird, too, because there was so much hype leading up to the video. Like, even, like, the teachers, I guess, I don't know, like, because I just had, like, a 5th grade teacher, and he's just kind of, like, a jokester. But, like, so maybe everybody... No, because we were all talking about it. But he was, like, making it like, yeah, this video is gonna, like, change your lives. And then we watched it, and we were like, oh, okay. I guess, like, people were really, I think, nobody said this, but I think we thought we were going to just watch a porn in the middle of class. And I say
also,
porn.
Okay, I just kind of thought of something.
Yeah.
So, from what I'm gathering, when we were, like, in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, and our sex ed was, like, you know, based on puberty, what I'm picking up is girls were taught, like, you're gonna get your period and it's gonna suck, and your boobs are gonna hurt, and you're gonna be really moody, and that's gonna blow and be terrible. But then with the boys, it was like, yeah, you're gonna be horny all the time. It's gonna be great.
Horny and angry all the time.
Yeah, but, like, there was always this aspect of, like, wet dreams were always talked about with the boys. And maybe this is a reach, but I feel like when we're not, like, telling girls, like, you might also have feelings like this too. It's this weird, like, pipeline into purity culture of, like, girls, you can't be horny. You can't, like, feel this way. If you do, that's gross and bad. But boys, it's totally normal. maybe
Yeah.
this is a reach.
I don't think it's not necessarily a reach. I do think though, like at least because like I remember like we did talk more like about like the sexuality part of it more as I got older in school. But for 5th grade, I think it was more like on one hand, I think they definitely felt the kids should know, but they were also like, I don't want to hear about anything from the PTA. You know what I mean? So like that's my
You don't want the
being
moms
generous.
to get upset.
Yeah, I don't want like them to like homeschool all the children forever because of this. Because it was more like, do you have any questions? But like 5th graders aren't gonna have like, what do you ask? Like that's one thing I do not like anything where they're like, so any questions, and like something where it's so like, I don't know what do you like. I think that's everything there is to know about it, but like I don't know. But then
Shout out to one of my friends during the 6th grade talk, and her teacher went, "Does anyone have any questions?" And it was dead silent. And my friend put her hand up and was like, "Yeah, can you explain what like vaginal discharge is?" And her teacher was like, "Oh, that's a good question, sure." And afterwards, I was like, "Oh, thank God, thank God, I'm normal." Because I didn't fucking know that was something.
no, I get that.
And then I was like, oh, good, it's not just me.
I think that I really like that's one thing I think 7th grade I think that was my favorite health teacher because like she was just like it was a whole semester of just health class, which I thought was so, which I mean I think that's like how it is for most people. But like and I'm assuming this is just what the curriculum was, but it was really comprehensive. Like, and we all like were, and she was really like liked us teaching each other. So like basically how it worked was like each like week or month would have like a different theme, different unit, and like we'd be learning about it, and then it would end with like our groups of 4 presenting a PowerPoint presentation on what we learned. So like we did a unit on eating disorders, different like mental health issues, STDs and drugs and like all these things that we like talked about. Pretty like, I think sex was like last. And I remember this was one thing too where we had this section. I don't know if you guys did too, but I thought it was really helpful. I think this is like about like this is what we had as far as like the consent thing. She did this thing about like love, like the Greek words like eros and filio and stuff like that. And like she was talking about how like, eros, like if you think about it, that's like, like a newborn, like they just like they want milk and stuff like that. They're just thinking about like it selfishly. And like and then I forget, I really wish I could remember how she weaved that into consent, but it was really beautiful. I remember thinking because I think the general gist is like if you're only out for you and not what the other person, I don't know, something like that. Like you just have to like both want the sex for it to be okay.
I just really like the idea of what grade were you in?
7th.
Of you like remembering thinking that it was beautiful, but in reality it was really clunky and awkward.
Yeah.
I think probably. I really like, the more I look back, I really like idolize this teacher because like she was like really progressive. I don't know if like the teachers are in charge of the guests who come in or who decides that in schools. I don't. Does the teacher coordinate that?
I think the teacher probably coordinates it and then checks with like the principal or something.
Yeah, because like when we were doing like the sexually transmitted diseases, she had like, I think it was her friend, I don't know, but she brought this man and he had HIV and he was just telling us like his whole life story and then like how it happened, and it was just like he was a person, but like he showed us like his bag of his medications and everything, but it wasn't like a scared straight, like it was just like
It was
a very
just
honest
to
and like
understand.
yeah, it was just a very honest conversation. Like those are things like I remember a lot. And I think also too, I just always like, and it was like co-ed classes, but I think I think it was good that I happened to have like a female teacher for both 7th and 9th grade health classes, because they were just like, they just said different things that like, I don't know if a guy teacher would have said it, But, like, I mean, what I'm about to say that she said that always made me laugh was, like, pretty, like, heteronormative, I guess. But it was just, I still liked it. Like, because she was, like, talking about, like, menstrual cramps and stuff, and she was talking about this, but she only really talked to the boys about it. Like, she was, like, really, like, focused on the boys, and she was like, you know, like, let's say you're married, or you have a girlfriend or whatever, and she asks you to go to the store and get her some tampons. If you bring back the pad, she will hate you. If she asks for the other, and you bring this, she'll hate you. Like, look at this. This is how it works. And she, like, kept talking to the boys about it. And I was like, wow, that was, like, cool. Because at the same time, like, it was 7th grade. Like, the girls basically already, like, we know. So I guess on that hand, like, that's good. But then, like, because, you know, Bob was talking to us yesterday about his thing, and, like, he just did not, like, nobody told any of the boys what happened. So I think, like, it's good that she was, like, I don't know.
Boys, here's how it works.
Yeah, I think that was good. My other teacher, I liked her too. She had, like, a good energy. She was pretty, like, straightforward and chill. And, like, I think because my 7th grade was so expensive, though, that I didn't, like, it wasn't a whole lot of new information. The only thing that was different was that it was in 9th grade where we finally got to watch, like, the birthing movie, where you just, like, watch a live birth, and we didn't really do that for 7th or 7th grade, and we didn't do it in 5th. But yeah, okay. So that was our kind of friends story times about sex ed. It's very important.
Yeah.
It sounds like we all kind of lucked out, because I really just can't get over how many schools in America in the year 2022 have horrible sex ed.
Stay tuned for our Don't Say Gay
episode. One thing I was thinking about, like, so, you know, one final thing on the whole, like, life begins at conception thing. There's stand your ground laws that basically say if you feel threatened, you can take a life, right? So, like, I feel like an unwanted pregnancy threatens the rest of your life, too. So, like, if stand your ground laws are okay, then we should all be pro-choice. Because you don't have to kill...
Fetus.
Nobody's forcing you to stand your ground. Either. Yeah. I just wanted to put that out into the universe. Like, manifest
again,
that.
like, the whole thing with, like, pro-life people is, like, typically, and I'm making blanket statements, but, like, typically when you look at people who are pro-life, they are, like, pro-gun and, like, pro-death penalty. Yeah, I'm like, where's the life that you're pro?
Yeah.
What? Brain. Anyways. Like, nothing intelligent or helpful to say there, but I'm just like, oh, interesting. That's real cute. It's fine for the state to kill somebody, as long as they're not a fetus, because then that's so bad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been kind of like we've had fun having this conversation, but, like, unfortunately, the Supreme Court wants to overturn Roe, and, like, we talked about in the beginning, the effects that's going, the domino effect that could and will likely have unless something happens to change it. So I think the important thing to do, you know, like, we've had fun, but it's just really important to be kind and understanding, you know, like, whether or not you personally would get an abortion, you need to, you know, accept that, like, this other person isn't you, and they're making a very difficult decision, whatever it is, in the long run. Also, I think it might be easy to think, like, oh, well, I don't think anyone should get abortion, so it's fine. This is not it, you know. If they can overturn this freedom, even though it was decided that it was protected under the 14th Amendment, and established in the 70s, they could take away anything. Interracial marriage is younger than Paul Rudd. Okay? Gay marriage wasn't federally recognized until 2015. It's younger than young Sheldon.
Gay marriage isn't
Like,
old enough for
these
kindergarten.
are, like, I just think it's, like, I think it's really easy to be, like, apolitical or just, like, you know, there's nothing that can be done. But, like, it's just really important at least to care. Like, if nothing else, one way or the other, I really just hope people could just, like, care. Okay, Karina, do you want to hit us with some of those resources?
Yeah, so number of resources down in our description. So the first one comes from the National Abortion Federation. This is a really good resource in terms of like education, and it's also very helpful because it has a find a provider resource, and this works for the US, Canada, Mexico, and Colombia. So if you or somebody you know needs to get an abortion, you can use this website to help find a clinic that will provide it for you. Secondly, there is, of course, Planned Parenthood. So they also have abortion information and a find a clinic resource. And they also have a petition to sign that will, you know, help protect Roe v. Wade. Additionally, with that, there is Act Blue. They have a petition to help codify Roe v. Wade. For this particular link, you need to be a U.S. citizen to donate, but there is also another link to providing abortion funds. So that's also really good. There's the Abortion Care Network. You can donate to that. There's the DC Abortion Fund. So you can donate to that. You can volunteer, and it also has resources on getting help for yourself or somebody you know who needs an abortion. And there are plenty of petitions to sign and organizations to get involved with in your area that care about protecting reproductive rights and protecting Roe v. Wade. So please get involved. And I cannot stress this enough. Please vote when it is time for voting, because despite how bleak things look, your voice in political situations means a lot. Citizens are such a huge component in our democracy, and I know that at times it seems like these decisions are out of our hands, but it is up to us to vote people who care about us and care about our rights and freedoms. We need to vote them into political power. So please, please understand that your contribution to our democracy is really important. So get out there and vote, please.
On that note, thank you guys so much for listening. And thank you, Rogue and Karina, for being here to talk about this. We did our first KoF educational moment.
Yay! Our first big one.
Yeah. Maybe there could be like some like confetti comment. I don't know, whatever. I don't know, something for that.
Full video.
But
Yeah.
and like, you know, you can listen to this on YouTube if you're here and wherever podcasts are available. But remember to comment, like, and subscribe because we all need friends. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.